Of course, no. They even if you put it in writing, they say I never saw that. I mean, so if you even if you don't put it in writing, that's
Okay.
they're never gonna see it. So definitely put it in
Okay.
writing and be like, hey, it was here's the contract that you signed, here's the invoice that you signed.
Okay.
It's right on there.
Right.
I didn't make this up.
Okay.
You signed it. You should have read it, and that protects
Okay.
you. But it also gives a standard level of professionalism and trust to the customer. They're like, hey, yeah, you do have these policies in place, and that you're not just like verbally telling me this, and like who knows what you'll change, the next week. If you could maybe just tell me a bit about your business. Where are you at currently? What type of items you're doing, and start off with just the biggest thing, the biggest issue or hurdle that you're trying to overcome at this stage, so I get some context.
I have a funeral home that I work for, so I have a school, I have a cheer team, and my daughter is a realtor, so I have a restaurant that I do some logos for. I do some things for Eastern Star, and I'm doing this all on the TC.
Okay.
So,
So it's,
so
it's a
I
little
have
bit limited and takes a little bit of time, sounds like.
correct.
Okay.
But my biggest problem is the admin part.
Okay.
But I want to make sure that from end to end that I'm doing the right thing.
Right.
That I'm not missing anything as far as contracts, because I want to make sure that I don't get stuck with something that I could have eliminated in the beginning of the order.
Okay, sure. I mean, and I think that's all about setting the right expectations when you're dealing with the clients, right? So I don't know if you currently have any policies in place. Do you have some kind of promise on turnaround time? Do you have some promise on, like, if you don't like your product, how do you deal with refunds or returns? Do you have something in place for that currently?
I do not.
Okay, so that's something that you want to start thinking about first, right? Because if you're growing, there's just gonna be bound to be some types of customers that are not gonna be happy, or they want something done differently, and you have to be prepared to handle that so that you can grow in the long run. Because the success that you're getting now is great. You're kind of getting your hands in a lot of different things, in restaurants, in schools, in fraternities, in the real estate market, which is all good. You're diversifying a lot of the different revenue streams that you're getting. But you have to realize, if this is just going to be a short-term spike and you don't have long-term processes set in place to handle long-term customer success and customer satisfaction for the customers that you are working so hard now to get, then things might be kind of falling out on the back end. So you keep have to funnel your business with new customers and not retaining the old customers that have already done transactions with you. Make sense?
Right. I guess my concern is, okay, usually everything is verbal, because right now everything is word of mouth. I don't advertise. I put things on Facebook and I get, people calling me. And yes, I have had to refund money.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I have had to do things over. Yes, I have lost customers. I would like to know, is there something out there that's generic that as an embroiderer we could have that kind of gives us a basis to cover the policies, what we should be aware of.
Of course, yeah, some of the basics off the top of my head, and in the embroidery groups, I'm sure others can chime in on the resources that they have or templates that they use. But just a couple of things off the top of my head, in terms of things that you should look out for when approaching a sort of contract or sort of policies and terms of use, are things like, hey, you got to make sure that the artwork is provided, and that when we send you the proof, that is the proof that you approve, right? Because the proof is the way to protect you as the vendor, that, hey, you approve that this is what you want, and I'm in charge of getting the final product stitched out or printed out to be exactly how you proved it. then that's my job. But if there's any changes after that, then it's the responsibility of the customer to make sure that that's being communicated, and you have policies set in place as to how that works, how much that additional charge is to make any changes, and things like that. But those things need to be thought of beforehand, and some of those come with the different experiences that you have. Right? You mentioned you had to refund some things, and then you learn from those things, right? So then now you know you have to have a refund policy in place. Is it 7 days?
Right.
Is it 14 days? Is it 30 days? Right?
Right. So now what I do as far as approval of the I usually do a stitch out, and I also do a quote that they have to approve with a copy of the stitch out that I send them a picture, they have to approve it, because you're right. They will come back and say, well, I really want it this way, and I'm like, that's not what we talked about.
Exactly.
So that was a hard $200 lesson.
Right. And some of that is the cost of doing business and it kind of paying the tuition to learn this stuff. But once you kind of have that experience under your belt, now it's the time to put that into writing, right? Put that onto your sales orders, onto your invoices, onto the quotes that you send to your customers. That hey, these are the terms, and when you're signing this quote, you're agreeing to those terms. But some of those, you can't think of everything under the sun, and there's always going to be cases. We're still having cases that we have to deal with that we have never dealt with before. But you learn from that, and you continuously add on to the policies that you have in place. That's going to be written in stone, and it's going to be reasonable, right, for both you and for the customer. So it's just about taking the experiences, the hard lessons that you had to learn along the way, and taking the time and putting those thoughts in writing on paper, so that it's at the in the bottom of your quote, in the bottom of your invoice that you send to the customer, and they understand the terms of doing business with you.
Okay. There is a place for me to attach a contract to my 17 hats, so I can do that.
Exactly.
I have something at the bottom where I put a little bit of blurb of what the down payment is and what the turnaround time is. I'm getting to the point where I'm like, I've got to put this in writing.
Of course.
And not assume that they know, or because people don't know.
Of course, no. They even if you put it in writing, they say I never saw that. I mean, so even if you don't put it in writing, they're never gonna see it. So definitely put it in writing and be like, hey, here's the contract that you signed, here's the invoice that you signed. It's right on there. I didn't make this up. You signed it. You should have read it, and that protects you. But it also gives a standard level of professionalism and trust to the customer. They're like, hey, yeah, you do have these policies in place, and that you're not just like verbally telling me this, and like who knows what you'll change, the next week, right? It builds also a level of trust. So I would rather you slow it down and just spend the day and just hash out all the hard lessons that you had to learn, the refunds, the specs not being confirmed, all of those things, all of those things. Put it in writing, put it in a way that people can understand, and that it's very clear and clear cut as to what the policies are. Have that in writing, put that on your contract, put that on your invoices, put that on whatever website you have in the terms and policies. That's the bare minimum that you can do to build the foundation so that you can scale.